believe me, just watch. Don't believe me, just watch.
We are back on the Morning Brew with friends with our friend Kyle Redford, the Vice President of Anderson Air Corps, and it has been hot. It was like 102 yesterday.
Yes, it was.
What does that do to the poor service guys you guys have at Anderson Air Corps? Are they just driving all over town, fixing air conditioners?
Oh yeah,
all day?
last week was a pretty challenging week for the service
imagine.
techs.
Is this the busiest time of year, or is summer busier, or is the winter busier? For
Summer
you
by
guys?
Far.
Really?
Yeah,
People
by
want to
far.
stay cool rather than hot?
Yeah, people can seem to tolerate the cold a little better than they can tolerate the heat. You can put on more clothes, but you can only take off so many.
That's the truth. That's the truth. You can only stand in front of the refrigerator with the door open for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
So in your case, you are busy, but what are some of the best ways to cool a house in the summer heat like this right now? Is it, like I have refrigerated air, and I love it, but most of us think, or a lot of us in Upgrade still have swampies.
Yeah, a lot of people do still have evaporative cooling. You know, there are different efficiencies of evaporative coolers out there. The old 1-inch Aspen pad coolers, 3 or 4-sided coolers.
Oh, yeah.
That you go out there and change the pads in every year.
Right.
Those can, they still work well.
Right.
The higher efficiency ones are the single inlet coolers that have either an 8-inch, 8-inch thick pad or one 12-inch
Are those
thick
a lot
pad.
more expensive though?
They're not a lot more.
But they are a lot more efficient in the long run.
Yeah, you can get, 4, 5, 6 degrees cooler air out of them than the Aspen pad coolers.
So those are what, 20 degrees, 25 degrees at best, right?
Yeah, depending on the humidity.
So when you're looking at like degrees, like days like yesterday that were 100 degrees, man, you're not really doing that good when you're sitting roasting an 80-degree when
Right.
you're on home, right?
Yeah, well, if you've been out cutting the grass and it's 102 and you walk inside and it's 80, that feels pretty good.
Right.
If
Right.
you're sitting there watching the U.S. Open for 4 hours of 80-some degree air blowing on you,
Right.
That gets pretty miserable.
That can get pretty hot pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So what are some tips that people have? Say the folks out there who do have these older style evaporative coolers. What are some ways to make those things run more efficiently, stay running well, and keep cooler air going into the house?
Well, obviously service them.
That's
Make
just
sure
keeping them full of. I remember when I was a kid, we had one. It was like full of scale and lime from the hard water. Just
Right.
taking all that stuff out is a good first step, right?
Right, clean them. The old 3 or 4-sided Aspen pad coolers, change the pads every year. Sometimes even change them mid-season, just depending on the water that you have. If you have water that plugs those up, make sure
Right.
that the distribution tubes are clean, the pump screen is clean so it's pumping enough water. Probably the biggest mistake that I see homeowners make with evaporative coolers is there's this adage in Albuquerque where you need to crack a few windows to
Right.
make your
I have
swamp
heard
cooler.
that. That's the old. I don't know. Is that a wives' tale? Is that a?
Well, in reality, you have to think about what the cooler's trying to do. An evaporative cooler doesn't really cool the air that's in the house.
They're a heat exchanger.
It pushes the heat out.
Yeah.
Is the way to really think about it. So by cracking a few windows this much, you can't really push much heat out of the house.
Because you're letting in just as much.
Well, you're not really letting it in. The evaporative cooler's taking air from outside and putting it into the house. So it's trying to suck air from outside and push it out. And people think, well, you don't want to open those windows because all that heat's going to come in. But the house is actually under a positive pressure when the cooler's on. So the idea of a swamp cooler is consider where your heat load is, and it's usually on the outside walls. So what you want to do is look at where the air is coming into the house, look at where the heat load is, and then look at what window you have to open or door or whatever so that the air comes into the house and pushes that heat out of the house.
Oh, yeah,
So
of course.
one thing that's kind of nice about evaporative cooling is you can kind of move the capacity around. If you're having a dinner party, friends over, watching the game or whatever, you can shut all the windows in the bedrooms and open all the windows, pretty big in the living area
And then
and
all of
push
that-
all that heat out of that into the house. But, kind of rule of thumbish, you know, if you've got like a 2,000 square foot house, 2,500 square foot house, you're going to need 6 or 8, maybe even 10 windows open like a foot.
Oh, wow.
Because
to make a difference.
well, we size a cooler in this area for an air change about every 3 minutes in the house.
Wow.
So picture your house completely full of 1 square foot cardboard boxes.
Right.
You got to get every one of those out of the house in 3 minutes.
That's
And you can only take it out the windows you open. Now,
Yes.
if you open 3 windows this much,
it's gonna take a lot longer.
you're not going to get those out
Right.
of there in 3 minutes.
Right.
The wild card here is always wind.
Mm-hmm.
If we've got a lot of wind out of the west, then you don't want to open a bunch of windows out of the west because it'll blow the hot air back
Right
in.
back at the house, yeah.
So, you know.
You got to play with that and figure it all out.
Yeah, it's not something you can just say, always open these 2 windows this much and life is good.
There's a real science to it, right?
Right.
What about those of us with refrigerated air? I mean, are there tips you have for those of us? Because it's not cheap to run that thing all day long in 102-degree heat.
Right. With refrigerated air, you really want to keep the house closed up because it is recirculating the air in the house. So you really don't want 100-degree air coming into the house.
Right. I'm the guy who I worry about things like solar gain, and I close all my drapes and all of that.
Yeah.
Stuff. I don't know if that's smart or if I'm just overthinking it.
No, that's good. You know, any way you can knock down that heat coming into the house,
Yeah.
you know, heavy curtains, trees, obviously.
Right.
Although, you know, I had a friend one time, I asked him when's the best time to plant a shade tree? And he said 20 years ago.
That is the truth.
But the second best time's right now.
In the spring, yeah. But you know, with refrigerated air, are there ways you can get a little more efficiency out of them? I do things like I always do the maintenance, and I make sure that I clean the. I bought that stuff that you spray on that cleans the actual the screens on the refrigerator unit itself.
Well, the outdoor unit, the best thing to clean that with is water.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, just water. You don't want a lot of residue getting on that coil. A lot of chemicals will eat the coil and cause it to leak.
But keep the filters inside changed.
Yeah, keep the filters inside changed. If you live in the valley, in the Bosque, where you get a lot of cottonwood,
That's one of my problems.
yeah, keeping that cottonwood off of those coils is really pretty important. And you can just take a hose and hose it down. You're not going to hurt the unit. It's made to be rained on.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good idea to turn it off at the disconnect so it doesn't come on while you're washing it off.
Right.
But,
Right.
you know, rinsing it off, keeping it clean, keeping your filter changed, you know, those kinds of things. Days like yesterday, where you know that it's going to be just blistering hot out,
Yeah.
you know, keep the curtains closed, keep the doors closed. Tell the kids, you know, shut the door, shut the door, shut the door.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, great. Well, we got our folks from the board game company are in Empire Board
Great.
Games, and I want to stick around. We'll play some board games in a minute. See what
good.
some of these are. I'm curious to open some of these boxes and see what kinds of things are lurking in here. We'll be back in a couple of seconds on the Morning Brew with Friends.